than 1 million Christians have been forced from their homes in Iraq. Scores of churches have been bombed, and priests and nuns have been brutally murdered. This is a group of Assyrian Christians whose families have spoken Aramaic for over 2,000 years, the same language spoken during the time of Christ. Many of them are being systematically kidnapped, tortured, raped, and murdered. For various reasons, the US and Iraqi governments have been slow to act in providing these refugees with any protection.
The same thing happened with Jesus. Now it will happen for us.
Time is running out for them. Without prayer and swift action, their end is certain. In order to make this film, the crew traveled to many areas in Iraq where few, if any, journalists have gone, and where there is virtually no US military presence. The stories you are about to hear may be disturbing, but they are real. At the end of this film, we'll tell you what you can do to stop this current-day genocide.
Between our people, our nationality, Assyrian, this reason we are suffering before. And another reason is our religion, because we are Christian. People in Iraq are Muslim.
In 2003, when the government in Iraq, they moved it. Yeah, my husband, he has a small store, very, very small. And like, you know, the Muslim people, they coming to his store, they shoot him, like 3 shots, and they kill him right away. And be here. My daughter, she called me like 5 o'clock in the morning. Just I hear somebody crying, somebody coming to my daughter's house. They put, you know, the mask in the face, and we have the shotgun. Yeah, they tried, ring the door, and then they tell her if you don't open the door, they want to shoot under the door to open it. She's scared. She opened the door. You know, the reason they come in her house, they want to find her husband, because her husband, he have tattooed like the cross. With my daughter, they try to do sex with her, but she pregnant. But she don't tell me do or not, but I know they hit her. Hit my daughter in the shotgun. They hit her in the head, in the stomach, in her back. And then that, about maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, and she lost the baby. They take her to the hospital.
Looked upon as infidels and collaborators with the West, Christians in Iraq have long been persecuted and treated with suspicion.
The thing that is most unique about the current persecutions in Iraq is the individual level of violence. How can people take a 6-month-old baby and roast him and serve him to his mother? It is barbaric.
We were quite surprised to see the very high percentage of those who have suffered direct violence. They don't flee because they heard a bullet or they heard a bomb. And about 16% had suffered torture, and 70 and 80% have seen bombings. They've seen bits of bodies flying all around the place. They've seen killings. About 50% have received death threats themselves. And a very, very high percentage have been victims of, or one of their relatives have been victim of abductions for ransom.
My father was kidnapped in April, 8 in April. So it's 1 year. We don't know where he is or did he still alive.
سبع دفعات اطلب له وبعدين في اللي يقول يرجع للبيت ها كمان ها رجع له خمير ها خبري يعني كمشي قليلا وانا كم مرجع لي يعني باش يجيبي خيومه دورك بشي لا بروني باش يجيبي 10
They release her husband to go to bring money and they left them her son
10 ايام باش يجيبي كل يوم يكون خبري ما عنده خمير تليفون كيف بقاري يعني كم خباب لك بقاري ما كمان
every day they speak with them and tell them give us money if you don't give us we will kill you
Christian people here, they sacrifice everything but to keep the faith, as I mentioned. But here in generally speaking in Iraq, the Christian people suffered the most.
Since 2004, more than 40 churches have been bombed throughout Iraq, with scores injured.
The church, a place of prayer for people, regardless what religion they are, is a very holy place. If you touch that, you're touching them deep in their thoughts. And this will bring people to think twice. Should we stay or should we leave? Should we build back? Maybe it will be bombarded again. Do we leave the country? These are the questions that goes up on the heads of the people when they see the house of God are destroyed.
Assyrian culture is unique in two respects. One is that it is an Aramaic-speaking community. It is the last living Aramaic-speaking community in the world. And also, all Assyrians are Christians. They're an Eastern form of Christianity, but there are many other phases as well.
Aramaic people, the Chaldean Assyrian people, they accepted Christianity easily because the missionaries, they spoke the same language. Jesus spoke Aramaic. Our people spoke the Aramaic language. It was easy for them to accept Christianity because of the language. First century, beginning of the second century to the third century, we had a lot of churches in the Persian Empire, in Iraq, basically, and Christianity became stronger until the 7th century when Islam came to the region.
Jordan, Syria, and Turkey have become home for hundreds of thousands of Iraqi refugees. It is believed that at least half of Iraq's Christian community has fled their homeland because of persecution. It has been called the greatest refugee crisis in 60 years.
It is a very sad situation in which our Christians are now. Now, the churches in Iraq are very much evacuated, especially in Baghdad, the capital. The seminary, Chaldean seminary, is now moved to the north, the Kurdish side. Lots of other churches are moving there, like the Syriacs, another Christian group after the Chaldeans over there. They also moved their seminary to the north, to the area called Ankawa, Erbil, and so on. Lots of these priests are leaving the country because, as you hear very much, they are also being killed. Churches have been bombed, as you hear in the news. And so you could say that there is a certain sort of conspiracy against the presence of the church, the Christian church in Iraq.
When I first went to the Middle East in November 2006 to look at the situation of displaced Iraqis, I was overwhelmed by the extent of the crisis, the numbers, the scope, and the fact that it was now a regional crisis with refugees throughout the region, but also displaced Iraqis inside Iraq. When I came back to the US in December of 2006 and talked to the State Department about the growing humanitarian crisis, what I got in return was basically a denial over the existence of the crisis. There were no Iraqi refugees, they told me. These people were guests or tourists.
This woman's brother was murdered by Al-Qaeda.
طبعا هم بالبداية يعني رادوا يخطفوه لأن كان يعني القوات الأمريكية كان لها ثقة يعني عمياء فيه، يعني كان يدخل إلى يعني أماكن أسلحتهم ويعني بيصعد دباباتهم همراتهم بيسوق عادي يعني ماش فشكير شو مبللة.
The U.S. and Iraqi governments have been slow to act in providing these refugees with any protection.
The same thing happened with Jesus. Now it will happen for us.
Time is running out. 1,000 years. The same language spoken during the time of Christ. Many of them are being systematically kidnapped, tortured, raped, and murdered. For various reasons, scores of churches have been bombed, and priests and nuns have been brutally murdered. This is a group of Assyrian Christians whose families have spoken Aramaic for over 2,000 years. More than 1 million Christians have been forced from their homes in Iraq.